Welcome all, and thank you for joining us today for SuneraTech's Thought Leadership Series with Tom Simkiss from Creoal Consulting. Today we're going to be discussing moving your ERP to the cloud. My name is Art Devereaux. I'm a Director of Quality Engineering with Sonera Technologies. I'm going to be your host and moderator today. So we'll go ahead and get started. A few housekeeping notes. We'll open up the discussion to question and answers later on. So should you have any questions, please use the Q&A portion of the Zoomcast to ask your questions there. And Tom and Lavanya will be happy to answer those as we progress through the presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Tom and Lavanya for introductions. And here we go.
Okay, thanks, Art. Appreciate everybody attending. My name is Tom Simkiss. I'm the Director of Cloud Solutions for Creoal Consulting. I've been working with Oracle for about 23 years. Started out as an end user, staff accountant using Oracle eBusiness Suite 10.7 Smart Client. And then I like the software so much, probably people might find that hard to believe, but actually I do like the software. I moved into consulting about 3 years after that. I've been doing it for the most part ever since. Worked on every release of Oracle applications, EBS, and cloud. Started working with cloud in about 2013 in the HCM version. Did a little bit of work with the legacy CX platform before they kind of integrated it all in. And now I do a lot of work with the ERP, HCM, SCM, and EPM cloud as well. I'm an Oracle ACE, Oracle ACE designation, Applications ACE. Oracle gives it out for folks that give back to the communities to do presentations and do speeches such as this and demonstrate deep knowledge of the Oracle applications. I'm an attorney, passed the bar in Pennsylvania and New Jersey and the American Bar, and I'm a certified public accountant in New Jersey and currently active in the state of Pennsylvania. Lavanya?
Thanks, Thomas. Hi, this is Lavanya Salagundla. I head the test engineering practice as well as the cloud tester platform at Sonera Technologies. I come with a lot of quality engineering and testing background for past several years, and have been helping a lot of organizations with their cloud transformations, both the SaaS implementations and post-implementation support, as well as any customers who are moving to lift and shift and then migrating to cloud as well. Also support a lot of customers in terms of providing continuous testing, CI/CD, DevOps, agile transformations as well. Look forward to our conversation today.
So Tom, you go ahead. So the first we're going to be discussing cloud strategies for on-prem, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep. So there's kind of three different kinds of clouds, if you will. And you know, when Oracle, for the most part these days, speaks of cloud, they kind of speak in two terms. One is obviously their SaaS products, right? So they just were named leaders in Gartner's Magic Quadrant in their SaaS applications, but cloud can also mean, hosting. And so, cloud's been around for a long time. Anybody thinks that cloud is new, it's not. It's been around many, many years. And they just kind of, migrated the naming convention to use cloud. So when we speak of cloud for on-premise, we really mean a hosted environment, right? So your software, whether it's EBS or JD Edwards or PeopleSoft or SAP, it is your software that you own, you buy a perpetual license, and it is hosted on someone else's servers. The big example that most people think about when they think of cloud would be Amazon Web Services. So contrary to what Oracle would like you to think, people don't think of Oracle automatically when they think of hosted services. They really think of AWS. So you can spin up a server in the cloud and host your software there very easily. So, for people, what I want you to understand is there's a couple different kinds of clouds. Private is exactly what it sounds like. Your software is hosted in somebody's, whether it's Amazon's, Oracle's, or third-party providers like Sunera. It's hosted in their data center. They've got a box. Your software sits there, and you'll usually have some direct connection to that environment. VPN or a direct link, dark fiber, whatever it happens to be, you're connecting directly to that. Then you've got a hybrid model. A hybrid model is where your on-prem is out there, but it is in a public cloud. So that public cloud could be AWS, it could be Oracle, and you could have some of your solution and that could be on your facility, it could be in a public cloud, and you're integrating, of course, with Oracle solution, right? Or you're integrating with Microsoft solution, you're integrating with SAP solution. So you have some of your software components that are still on-premise base, and of course some of your software solutions that are in the cloud entirely. And then you've got the public cloud. And the public cloud is, somebody else owns the infrastructure and everything. Your software just sits up there. Now, this is not really Oracle SaaS. Oracle SaaS is certainly in the public cloud. You can have a private version of Oracle SaaS. There's a few different flavors of that. But really, when we speak of public cloud, it really means that your software is out there in the public domain, and it's hosted and guarded and managed by a third party. All these solutions have their values. The real truth of cloud, and we'll get to this in more depth in a few slides, is that people are still not convinced that cloud's right for them. Whether they're running a highly customized on-prem solution, they have a very specific business and they don't feel that the cloud solutions are there for them, or they're concerned about security. So there are many reasons and many valid opinions about still running your software, your perpetual licensing, but having someone else take care of the hardware and the hosting. And those are questions that we can kind of get into as we move towards the presentation or move through the presentation. So we can go on to the next slide, Arthur. So Oracle in the cloud. This slide's actually been around for a while. I use this slide a lot because it's true. It's been true for 5 years, and it continues to be true today. Oracle is committed to the cloud. Larry always talks about cloud and their desire to dominate in the cloud. As I said, they just won yet another Gartner Magic Quadrant for leadership of vision and completeness of solution of their SaaS products. According to Mark Hurd, I think he started this prediction back in 2016. Mark Hurd used to do these predictions at the beginning of Oracle's fiscal year before he sadly passed away. And Mark Hurd was pretty accurate, a lot of his predictions. And Mark Hurd predicted that by 2020, at least 80% of clients would have their dev or test environments in the cloud. I'm not sure how that percentage is coming, but I know most of my customers that still run EBS on-premise, they do in fact have their dev and test in cloud. If it's not in Oracle's cloud, it's in Amazon's or it's in a third-party hosting provider. So most of their new applications that they build are cloud-based. For those folks out there that still run EBS and run PeopleSoft and run Edwards, fear not. Those applications are not going away, contrary to what you may have heard. They will be supported at least for the next 10 years. How many enhancements they're going to get, that's subject for debate, and Oracle certainly has a lot of documentation on that. But EBS is not going away. It's still around. They're actually still doing a lot of great things with the product. But the major enhancements and the major new functionality, that's certainly going to come to SaaS first. And if you're a company that wants new technology and doesn't want to be left behind, then really cloud and SaaS is right for you. So cloud's coming. The biggest thing that I would say has changed in the last 7 years since I've been doing cloud, when I started doing cloud in 2013, everyone had to have a cloud strategy, even if it wasn't meaningful. I would take meetings in New York quite frequently, and when I would have CEOs or CFOs say, Tom, come up with a cloud strategy for me. I have to get to the cloud. And I would say, why? And they would say, because the board wants it. And that was it, right? Now that's no longer the case. Now they have to have a cloud strategy because people are starting to recognize there is benefits, right? If you're in the business of business and you're not in the business of hosting or managing databases, it is usually better and more cost efficient to let somebody that's in the business of that do it for you. And that really is one of the main benefits of cloud. We can go to the next one, Art. All right, so cloud migrations. What are some key considerations when moving to the cloud? The one that I hear most frequently, and these are actually put in a great order, they're really put in the order of what are the questions that I get most often. And the first one is, what happens to my data? Is the data that I put in the cloud mine? And the answer to that really depends on the cloud solution that you're utilizing. I know NetSuite, prior to when they were bought by Oracle. So this is a scenario that goes back a few years. But if you wanted to migrate off of NetSuite, there was actually a pretty substantial fee that they would charge you to pull your data out. I don't know if that's the case any longer. If you utilize HubSpot, HubSpot is not only is it a marketing platform, it's also a CRM platform. And HubSpot offers a free version of their CRM software. It's actually pretty robust. It does a really nice job. You track your leads in it. You can track your deals, your sales. But here's the deal. They own your data. It says that right on the front page. It says, we own your data. If you want to pull it out, you certainly can, but we get to keep it. So they have a right of use because you're using the software for free. For Oracle, the data is yours, right? So if you're using Oracle SaaS, it's your data. You get to keep it. You get to pull it out. They will not delete it unless you tell them you want something purged. The other question I get is how do I get my data to the cloud? A lot of different ways, and now I'll just speak specifically to Oracle SaaS. Oracle has done a wonderful job of creating new tools and technologies that make it far easier to convert and load your data than it was in prior versions of the application. There are Excel-based tools that you can utilize that run directly against the interface tables or APIs, depending on how you want to load your data. And it really is the need for developers for data conversions is much less than it used to be. So getting your data to the cloud is certainly challenging because you've got to extract it from your system and map it, but loading it is relatively straightforward, and you can bring as much or as little as you need for your implementation. Next question I get a lot is time. How long does it take? And again, this is, it's a fairly nebulous question, and I'll give a consulting answer. It depends. I will tell you that for my firm, for Creoal Consulting, we can do cloud implementation in as little as 12 weeks, given the right scope. We see clients do take that up, and if they stay focused, they can certainly do it. The biggest risk with going to the cloud is not the consultants and it's not the technology. Both can run fast. The biggest consideration is how quickly can your organization take up the challenges of the cloud. We've got a few points later on that we'll get to, but if you really want to go run fast, you certainly can. The software is there to support it. Oracle has done a wonderful job about giving training guides that are free and really very good. If you go to youtube.oracle.com, there's a full Oracle YouTube channel, and there's great technology and great trainings to help you move your implementation faster. But I would urge folks to take into consideration that as you're doing your cloud journey, you still have a business to run. And make sure that you balance your project with your business solutions. And finally, I'll talk about expertise. Firms like Sunera and firms like Creoal, we're around and we're successful because we employ strong resources. Lavania's been doing this a long time. I've been doing this probably a little bit longer than Lavanya. I got the gray hair. She's still got the dark hair. But nonetheless, you really want to talk to not only your implementation partner. The nice thing about Creoal and the nice thing, I've worked with Sunera a long time, and when we're in sales cycles, people will ask us, are the people that we're speaking to the people that are going to be on the project? And a lot of times we can say yes to that. If you can move quickly, we put the frontline people on so you get comfortable. Some larger firms aren't able to do that. They won't do that so you can commit. And it doesn't mean the large firms are bad. They're certainly great. The Big Four and Oracle do a wonderful job. They've been around for a long time. But with other firms and other consultants, you really want to make sure you get the right person for your role and that they can actually do the configurations. So, I would urge you when you're going and making your selection for your partner, make sure you speak to the people that are going to be doing the work. Get some professional references, not just client references, but get some professional references. Treat it like an interview. You have that right. You're selecting that firm. And you want to make sure that the people that are put on the project can actually execute it. The cloud, and you'll hear this when Lavanya speaks, the really cool thing about the cloud, and when I mean cloud in this situation, I mean Oracle SaaS, it is constantly evolving. It's new technology. So every quarter, you're getting new updates, new technology, new feeds, bug fixes. Does the firm that you're utilizing have the expertise to test those and deploy them? And if they don't, do they have the intelligence and forethought to partner with a firm like Sunera that has tools and technology that can allow you to test those things and make sure your implementation is successful? So those are kind of three considerations. There's obviously a lot more, but those are the ones that I ask about quite frequently. So Art, we can actually move on to the next section now.
Excellent. So in this section, we're going to really kind of have a panel discussion because you touched on a lot of topics, Tom, and very good information. But, one of the things I wanted to ask is, you have a lot of experience doing this. You've been doing it for years. When you go through and you work with your customers or your clients, what are the top three, benefits that the company's going to realize from a journey to the cloud over an on-prem system?
That's a great question. Okay, so I have three that I hit quite frequently. The first one that I hit quite frequently is continuous innovation. So with on-prem solutions, when you got a patch or an innovation, it was frequently, once a year, right? And you had to incorporate your customizations, and it took time to roll those things out. In Oracle Cloud, it's not, right? You get enhancements every quarter, right? So you get new functionality, and that's great. The challenge is you have to be able to test it. Fortunately, you've got firms such as yourself that have tools and technology that allow you guys to roll those implementations out, and customers don't have to worry about, is this going to break something, is it going to work? Because they've got automated tools provided by Sunera that allow you to do that and roll it out. So I'll let Lavanya comment on that in a second. So continuous innovation is the first one. The second one that I see quite a bit is community support. And this is really unique to Oracle SaaS. Because everyone's running the same code set, the problems that you have are, for the most part, going to be the same problems that other people in the community have. And if you've got specific reporting needs, you can rest assured that somebody else has that same thing. So if you go to Oracle's customer community, what's really cool is you can search for reports. And if somebody has built a report for a specific area of payables or a specific area of purchasing, if somebody else has built that report, they can share it on the community, and there's a mechanism that you can download that report, and none of that customer information will be there. So it can be agnostic. So customer one can share it, confident in the knowledge that their data will not be shared, but that somebody else can pick it up and deploy it in their environment. So the ability of the community to support each other is far stronger in cloud than I think it was in on-prem. And the last thing that I'll say before I let Lavanya comment is better insight. A comment that I use quite frequently, I get asked by clients, how are my workers' lives going to change when we move to the cloud? And I do say you're going to get better insight. And the reason for that is A, real-time technology, real-time enhancements. The dashboards and reporting in cloud are far superior than they were in on-prem. And the ways that you can get data into the system, far more advanced, far more powerful than they were on-prem. So what I see quite frequently is that resources that were what I call data creators, so people that would enter data manually or that they would enter transactions manually, those folks turn into data consumers because the tools and the technology to get data in is so much better, and their ability to consume it and analyze it and make intelligent decision is far greater. So, three things just to reiterate: you have continuous innovation, community support, and better insight. Those are the three advantages that I see and that I feel most strongly about with moving to cloud. Lavanya, I'm going to turn it over to you for a few minutes.
Hey, so Lavanya, Tom he touched on continued innovation, and maybe you can talk us through or elaborate how we see companies at SuneraTech Technologies dealing with that continuous innovation and change management as well.
Sure, Art. So yeah, I mean, that's the best thing about cloud is that you're getting continuous innovation, continuous delivery, where you're not only getting new features, you're also getting fixes faster, you're getting enhancements, and you're getting that every quarter, right? And the thing that we are talking to customers and we hear is you have to plan for uptaking those as well, right? If you don't plan for it, what is happening is you're kind of focusing only on things that are mandatory to uptake, like your fixes and enhancements, but are kind of putting off some of these new innovative features that are getting delivered really fast every quarter, right? So sometimes we notice customers going back into how they used to treat on-prem, right? Where you only take these upgrades or patches when you have time later on as needed, right? So what we have seen is customers who have implemented automation as part of their implementation as well as post-implementation change management process are able to adopt cloud much better than customers who are doing more manual work, manual testing, right? Because if you think about it, this is being done by the users, right, who have other things to do as well. So, in terms of understanding how cloud works, right? It's as Tom pointed out, this is with cloud. There's a lot of things that are going to be common for customers, right? There's almost 70–80% that is going to be common across customers. That gives you a lot of benefits of community support and things that you can leverage through the community as well. But in terms of when it comes to how customers are viewing it, how your users are seeing it, they'll need to understand, what is configurable, what is non-configurable, what are the things that you should be considering when you talk about doing regression testing and things like that anytime you get new uptakes, right? So those are the places where, having that understanding when you're actually taking this journey to cloud, making sure that, that whole cultural shift and, paradigm shift of how you think about, how the releases are happening, the frequency with which the releases are coming, what do you do every time you get a release, so those kind of things, if you plan for, then we've seen customers being very successful in uptaking these new innovative functionality that Oracle and other cloud providers are pushing to customers.
Excellent. So just to kind of continue on with that, so we talked a little bit about the benefits. Tom, maybe you can talk about the top 3 questions or challenges that you see when working with a customer or a potential customer when they're about to start this journey. So we talked about the benefits. What are the biggest challenges that you see?
So the number one, it's a great question, Art. So the number one challenge or question that I think I get is the functionality that I need today available in the cloud? And I can tell you again, having worked with cloud as long as I have, that was not always the case, and it's actually still not the case today. Everything that is available in on-prem, and I'm only speaking for Oracle at this point, is not available in cloud. There's key features and functions that are still only available in EBS that I really wish they would add to cloud but aren't there yet. But I don't feel as strongly that that's an issue as I did probably even as long back as 2 years ago. And the reason I say that is Oracle's enhancements in their PaaS solutions, which is Platform as a Service, those tools give you the ability to extend in the cloud. So where there's gaps in functionality, you now have a far greater ease of extending the applications to meet your needs. The other thing that's nice about Oracle is if they have a solution that is lacking, and real estate management is one that I get quite a bit. Oracle does not do real estate management in cloud. They had a decent real estate management solution in EBS, but it really hasn't made it to cloud yet. The open APIs and the ability to integrate is so much more than it was with EBS that even if there is functionality that isn't there now, if you can integrate with third-party apps, that's great. And the other thing is because of continuous innovation, if it's not there now, it may be there in the next release. Related to that, the other question I get is, what happens to my customizations? And they go away is the short answer. You cannot customize in cloud. There's a lot of things you can do. You can configure. It's infinitely configurable. You can do personalizations. So you can make your forms look differently, and that's supported if you do it within the constructs that they give you. It is supported to do those personalizations, but your customizations go away. So a core tenet of my implementation process is you're going to utilize what Oracle calls modern best practices, and that means you're going to process your AP invoices in a particular way. And if you need some extensions, reports, or fields, we can add those. But I used to get the craziest requests all the time from clients. They had to have their AP invoices processed a certain way, and it was because they thought they were special and different, and they would hold their face and hold their breath till they turned blue till they got it. Didn't matter to me. I mean, you want to pay for customization, you can, but what those customers found was they were stuck on that release and they couldn't upgrade. You're now protected from yourself a little bit within cloud. But again, if you've got specific business needs, the ability to extend is there. And the last thing I would say that is something that people it is a challenge, and you're going to find this odd because it was one of the things that I said was a benefit: continuous innovation, right? So you get these new features, you get these new functions, and they're there, and it's wonderful. But if you can't take them up and you can't adopt them, the fact that they're there means you can't take advantage of them, right? So how do customers take advantage of that new functionality? How can they test their system in between this patch and the one that's coming up in a quarter? How can they test and regression test to make sure that patches didn't break anything, but also if they want a new functionality, how do they test that? And the best way that I know to do that is to use tools and technology, such as the tools and technology that Sunera has. And I think Lavanya can actually speak to that a little bit.
Yep. So thanks, Tom. So Lavanya, Tom touched on the double-edged sword of new features of continuous innovation. Maybe you can talk to a little bit about what Sunera is seeing and what those challenges are, because I know that there's some specific challenges that when we meet with customers, they kind of express a recurring theme as well. So maybe you can touch on that.
Sure, Art. So one of the things that we notice, again, I talked about paradigm shift, is the whole change management process, right? So the whole change management process is now much different than what it was with on-prem systems, where it's your infrastructure, it's your release cycles, you determine what goes into a release and all, right? But when it comes to cloud, it's all being controlled by your cloud provider. There are great advantages to that, right? Because you don't have to worry about, maintaining your infrastructure or, release cycles and all that, because that's all work that you have to internally currently do. But the flip side to that is, since it has been determined when you get a release, what goes into a release, and how much time you have to test it before it goes into production, and all is done by the cloud provider, which means you have to plan for it, right? The good thing is you actually know the schedule, right? Every customer knows at what time they're going to get these releases. They'll know what is coming in that release. They'll know what are mandatory features that are coming in, what are optional things that they can opt in or opt out. So there's a lot of things that they have available. What customers need to do from a change management process is plan for it, so that you know things are coming. You need to determine, okay, every time I'm getting a release, how do I do an impact analysis of what is coming in? If you have automated impact analysis, that would be the best way, so that you don't have to manually go read through the release notes, figure out how does it impact my release and all that, right? So having automated impact analysis, having automated regression testing in place provides you the ability to make sure that you're not spending too much time focusing on testing that really doesn't add value. You could actually get that process and all automated. Then what you can focus is, what are these new features that are coming in, and how does it impact my business, and when do I want to uptake those features? Do I want to do it this release? Should I push it to the next release? At least you would actually make a determination in terms of, when you want to uptake these, instead of infinitely postponing it, to the time when you get it. But as currently, with your current on-prem systems, that never happens. You'll never have time to uptake these things unless it becomes mandatory, right? And then you have to scramble to do that. So it's better planning and leveraging automation as much as possible. Like, for example, our cloud tester customers, we do complete, we make testing a non-event, from impact analysis to automated release validation to automated health checks in terms of, whether making sure that there are no process slowdowns or security breakdowns that are happening, and providing analysis, even the new features that are coming in, so that you could actually make a decision whether you want to uptake now or later on, right? So we're kind of making the whole quarterly update cycle a non-event, and so that you can actually leverage the automated platforms or automated solutions like Cloud Tester to better uptake and better take advantage of the cloud, because that's the whole reason you're moving to the cloud, right? You want to have that continuous innovation, give benefits both to your customers as well as your employees.
Excellent, excellent. So,
hey, Art, we did have a question on the Q&A. Just it says, customers using on-prem might have built a system with customized processes. How will existing customizations be moved to the new ERP cloud application?
Yep.
So the short answer is they won't, because customizations, you can't customize in Oracle Cloud ERP. The longer answer is it depends on the customization. So many of the things that you had to do previously via customizations, you can actually now do with configuration. And the other thing is I'm seeing a lot of customizations being moved from EBS to Oracle PAS, so custom forms and custom processes. I've had a couple projects where we very successfully recreated 2 or 3 custom forms that were put in for accounts payable to track additional information. We used Oracle PAS and Visual Builder Cloud Service to build those within Cloud. And you can put a link to the forms, and we launched the PAS application right next to it. So it is an extension. It's not a customization, but it's supported. So it really depends on the nature of your customization, what the need for it was, and how it's being utilized. And the last thing I'll say is you can do custom reports. So if you want to create a report that is not in Cloud and all it is just selecting data, that is absolutely supported. Okay.
Okay, great. So obviously, Tom, I think we were going to touch a little bit on, obviously why companies want to work with a proven partner as part of their journey to cloud. And I think you've done a pretty good job of explaining that. But let me ask, in your engagements, are there certain aspects of the migration or implementation process that you see companies kind of struggle with? Is there a couple of common areas where they have a challenge during their implementation or migration?
Yep. So there's 2 main areas I think that are the main challenges. We hit on one of them already, and it's actually still on the screen: data. When you're going to a new system, and I'll put my CPA hat on here for a second. You can convert all the data that you want into your new ERP system. The fact is it's not auditable. It wasn't your system of record. It will not survive an audit. So, it's like, oh, I got to convert 7 years of history because I need it for audit history. You can do that all you want. That's not auditable. So if you need your history for audit purposes, you got to keep that data available in a format that is consistent with how it lived. Once you get over that and you got to load it into the system, just data cleansing, those are always challenges. And whether it was on-prem or cloud, those challenges still live. So you want to make sure you got a partner that knows the best ways to bring data in. Creoal has a proprietary method that we came up with utilizing Accounting Hub that we bring in a lot more historical data than some of our competitors do. And I used to because you can use the Accounting Hub to bring it in, get all this information in there and report off of it. The second thing that I'll say is a challenge is uptake of the system. So as I said earlier, cloud is rapid. The tools and technology allow for a more rapid implementation. And even though it is easier to use, and I'll say this, my EBS customers that have moved to cloud have had a very easy time moving to cloud because the forms, names, and the navigation is similar, if not exactly the same. But nonetheless, there is a learning curve. Change management is something that cannot be ignored. So the ability to uptake the new software and the processes is something that customers have a lot of challenges with, and there is no silver bullet for that. Either you can devote more resources to the project and backfill their roles, or you can't, in which case you've got to be patient and take a longer implementation, whereby you give your users more time to update the processes so that when you go live, you can utilize the software and processes in the most expeditious manner as possible. Answer your question, Art?
Yeah. Well, let me ask: do you also see them? Do they struggle with certain aspects of testing at all when you're
they do
process?
And that really goes to the timing. And again, that really gets back to the technology and the tools that you guys offer. So if you don't have automated tools, your projects take longer because your consultants, well, they can unit test and system test. They cannot UAT for you, right? It's got to be your scenarios and it's got to be your data. So if you don't have an automated testing solution, well, you're doing it manually. If you've got a solution such as the one offered by Sunera, folks can devote more time to training and data consumption and data cleansing and less time to creating test scripts and test scenarios because your tool does that for them.
Right. Excellent. And so maybe, Lavanya, maybe you can take that on and talk, maybe dive a little bit deeper into why that hurdle, the testing hurdle, is such a tough hurdle for companies to clear while they're going through implementation and post-implementation as well.
It sometimes comes down to time that the users have to actually, it's a brand new system that they're kind of understanding, right? How does this whole SaaS thing work? What are configurable, what are not configurable, what customizations that I used to have, what is available to me. So they're kind of getting adjusted to the new system. Plus, if they have to spend a lot of time doing the testing of the system to make sure it works, and also do their day job, right? Because that hasn't stopped, as Tom has pointed out before, right? So everybody's got other things to do, right? So what we have seen is if you don't plan proper testing as part of your whole implementation process, then things could go wrong in terms of amount of time you accounted for versus it's taking to do this. But if you have automation as part of your plan, even during implementation, right, where you could actually your implementation partner would be doing the unit testing and helping with SIT and all. But then when it comes to user acceptance testing, since with cloud almost 80% is going to be common flows, we should be able to automate those, right? And the users can actually focus one on training on the new system, understanding how it works, and focusing on some of these critical aspects that are very unique to them, that they have configured or personalized, that they want to really test to make sure it all works, right? So it's the combination of having both automated testing and users focusing on things that are more important would speed up the implementation process as well. And in case it turns out that once the UAT starts and the users want something else and it introduces new cycles of testing, if automation is in place, you should be able to complete that in 2 to 5 days versus taking another 3-4 weeks to do the testing, right? I'll give you an example. We were working with a customer who was implementing HCM cloud across 23 countries, and they planned for 3 UAT cycles. And we actually automated almost 800 plus test cases for them in preparation for UAT. So when they were at UAT cycle 2, they've figured out that there is certain things that business wanted, which was not originally planned, and they wanted to incorporate it. And that introduced a UAT 2.5 cycle, right? So the UAT 2.5 cycle, though they have introduced it, since it has already been completely automated, we were able to actually complete the testing portion of it within 4 days or 5 days of those changes that have been applied. And the implementation cycle really didn't really push it a lot, right? 4 or 5 days is not a lot of impact as such, right? But if automation was not in place, imagine that would have pushed off your implementation by at least 3-4 weeks if users had to do one more cycle of testing, right? So that's a few things during implementation. And if you actually automate during implementation and baseline it, then once you go live, then you're getting these quarterly updates, right? And those become a breeze for you because you already have automation in place. So you're kind of leveraging that every time a new release is coming in. So your focus is not on making sure that your critical processes are working. Your focus is more on, again, new innovative features that are coming in, what you want to do with those, right?
And so, Lavanya, real quick, maybe you can also talk about, you talked about the cloud tester solution and automation and the benefits of it. What are some of the challenges with that traditional automation tool suite, and how does having a partner like Sunera solve some of those problems?
Sure. So in terms of automation, there are tools out there, whether it's open source tools like Selenium, or you have commercial tools like UFT or others that are available out there, right? However, one thing that you need to keep in mind is the window that you get every time you have these quarterly updates, if it's Oracle Cloud, is about 2-week window that you get, right? So one of the things when you're evaluating these solutions out there is to see whether they're not only helping you automate, but how quickly are you able to maintain these automated tests, right? Because if you're not able to update these tests within that short window and then use them, then it becomes useless, right? Because then you will have to end up doing it manually. And then after 2-3 releases they become stale and you can't use it anymore, right? So that's one of the major things that we found customers who went with building their own solution is the maintenance part of it, whether the solution is using open source like Selenium or using bots or something like that, right? We've seen both ways. The struggle is more on the time window that you have to update and execute these tests, right? And the other thing that you have to keep in mind is the people who are automating understand the tool, right? They know how to create automated scripts, but they don't understand the business processes, right? So how do you, create a journal, or how do you hire an employee, or, they don't understand the processes, right? So then the business teams are still having to spend a lot of time explaining to them, understanding what is changing and getting it updated. And that also takes time, right? So those are two areas where we've seen customers struggle when they go with the build solution versus going with automated testing as a service, with partners like us, with Cloud Tester and solutions where you can get the platform as well as you get the service as part of it, right? So that kind of takes away those two problems of maintenance as well as, bringing in subject matter expertise as well, along with the automation technology.
Excellent, excellent. So I want to do a time check. We have about 15 minutes left, so I want to be able to open this up to Q&A to the folks who are listening in. And so let's jump to the Q&A portion. Now, I know there was a follow-up question, Tom, I think to the first one. John had asked about, customers using on-prem may have a built-in system for customizing process. And you touched on how the existing customizations basically go away. And there was a follow-up from Aaron, and I'm not sure if this is 100% related to the first question, but he's asking, how will these specific functional flows be handled during implementation and post-implementation?
Yeah, I'm actually not sure I understand the question, those specific functional flows. So, Aaron, I'll give you what I think you're asking, but if I'm not answering your question, you're certainly welcome to follow up. What I utilize frequently in my implementations, and what I think Lavanya was referencing to, is there are standard flows that Oracle recommends you use when you're using Oracle Cloud, right? There's a predefined way that they would like you to enter an invoice or enter a supplier. You can certainly deviate from those, but if you start with those flows and solve for the delta, it creates a more streamlined implementation, it creates more predictability, and then if you do have extensions that you need, you kind of build them onto the side. I'm not sure how the Sunera solution deals with extensions, so Lavanya, I'll let you comment if it does, but for standard, anything standard within the Oracle Cloud ERP can be integrated with a testing solution. So we've got about 3 or 4 questions coming up, but Lavanya, I wanted you to respond to the extension question if you can.
Sure. Yeah. So the automation, it's not just for the application under test, but the extensions, or any past solutions that customer have implemented, as well as any integrations that they might have with, their on-prem systems or other cloud or other third-party systems, right? So that you can actually test the whole end-to-end data flow, and not just testing your functionality without understanding the impact of, upstream, downstream systems, right? So we definitely leverage automation for all testing, not just the application, your cloud application testing.
Great.
Okay.
There's a kind of a 2-part question, I think, from Sai on there. We'll handle that one first. So it basically says, Phasewise implementation. One of the clients is looking to have a legacy system for phase 1 along with move to complete by phase 2. What are the best practices and considerations when we are doing a part of ERP in phase 1 and the other part is handled by legacy systems? So, maybe I think it's probably going to be a little bit of an answer for both of you there. So maybe Tom, do you want to take first crack at it?
Sure. So this is really, I think this is just straight an opinion question. Like what I try to do is when I have a phased implementation, I like to try to phase my projects to avoid temporary interfaces, right? I hate having to have integrations that we have to build to keep systems moving along that we know are going to throw away once this full system is live. But the reality is you're always going to have something. So you want to try to plan your implementation so that if you do have to do integration, it's light. You can use the available APIs or file-based data loaders so that you're not spending a ton of development. That would be my #1 best practice on how I do my phasing. I'll turn it over to Lavanya if she's got something different.
No, I think that's right. So from a testing standpoint, it's more or less keeping up with while you're implementing the phase 1, focus on automating those, but continue to keep up with whatever you're doing on the legacy systems as well to ensure that you're keeping the lights on and you're actually testing what is happening there.
Okay. Okay. Next question is, it looks like it's from Ruth. It says, can you explain a little bit about the change management while moving from on-prem to cloud ERP from a migration perspective? Okay.
So there's, two main components to change management. One is process and training, and the other is system. Invariably, when you go from an on-prem solution to cloud, people's jobs are going to change. And the reason for that is folks that had to connect to an ERP system prior either had to go to a terminal to do it, or they would have some kind of very limited handheld interface if they were doing scanning. With cloud, so again, Oracle ERP Cloud, you can really connect to it from any device. I have many clients that use a iPad as they're walking the floor to pick things, and they scan things with the iPad technology, and they have that fill for them. So that's going to be a business process change. So how people do their jobs, regardless of the tool, you really want to make sure you focus on that and educate people early and often. And you want to really assuage concerns that people's jobs are going to change. They're not necessarily going to go away. The second thing is, of course, the technology. It is new, and you really want to make sure that you get people on the system early and often so that they are comfortable with it when they go live. It is easier. There are a lot of tools out there, but that's what I do for change management. I communicate with my users early and often, and I have as many users as possible in sessions where we're showing the software, so they understand not only the functional solution, but also the technical component of it as well.
Lavanya, anything to add? Because I know you touched on change management, during post implementation. How do you see change management being handled if you're helping a partner during their implementation?
My biggest thing is planning, right? So you just plan for it. Be prepared on how it's going to be different than it is on-prem, right? If you plan for it, then I think it would be much easier transition. Apart from what Tom has been talking about, right? So that would be my focus. That's what I keep telling customers, especially when they've started the implementation. Don't ignore that part, because it's going to be a paradigm shift for the organization, for people who are doing it. So if they know what to expect, then you can plan for it better, and it would be easier transition.
Okay. There's a question from Aaron. What would be, he's asking about lift and shift. So maybe Lavanya, maybe you can touch a little bit on lift and shift scenarios.
Sure. So the lift and shift is a scenario where you keep your current on-prem system application, but you're moving the infrastructure to cloud, right? So you're kind of lifting and shifting what you have and moving to cloud from an infrastructure standpoint, not from an application standpoint. So with SaaS, you're actually moving the whole application into cloud, and it's the whole thing is changing, right? So with lift and shift, a few things you have to consider is when you're planning to do that, capacity planning of your infrastructure, planning. Are you doing lift and shift only for your non-prod systems, or you're doing it for prod systems as well? And looking at performance aspect of it when you do that, making sure that you have baseline the performance of the system on-prem versus cloud, as well as in terms of if you want to do migration as well. Once you do lift and shift, like for example, a lot of EBS customers currently who are on 12.1.3 version are planning to move to 12.2 version as part of the whole migration process, right? So when that happens, you could actually lift and shift and upgrade as part of that whole process, right? And or you can do lift and shift of your non-prod systems and keep the prod systems, or you could move some of the applications to SaaS and do lift and shift for some, right? So we've seen customers do multiple things. I've seen customers where they've moved their HR systems to SaaS, but then they've kept their finance and supply chain on-prem and did lift and shift, right? So there are multiple combinations that you have. It's just more of planning, as well as also plan to make sure that you do automation for that as well as part of your process, so that next time when you have to apply a patch or upgrade, you again have automation in place, right? So that a lot of times we've seen customers do very slow uptakes of patches and upgrades for on-prem systems because there is no time, right? The users never have time, so it keeps getting pushed, sometimes by years. I've seen customers who have not touched the EBS system for like 5-6 years, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's going out of support, so you have to update to the next version, right? So it becomes like a 6-month, 1-year project, which nobody likes to do, right?
Right.
So again, automation definitely helps with the whole
Okay.
process.
Tom, any comments, any thoughts on the lift and shift? Consider
The only thing I will say, there is another flavor of lift and shift, and it's really more for EBS because there are some automated tools to do it. But it's a concept, and I've done this at 2 clients. They took their exact configurations. So we took their business unit structures, their operating unit structures, their ledger, did an export from EBS and imported it into Oracle Cloud. And then we moved their historical data over because the interface tables are the same. It worked for financials really well. They didn't have any customizations, so that is absolutely a viable solution. And again, having an automated testing tool such as your testing solution from Sunera would make that a lot easier because the flows are standard. They can take the data, run your tool, and have a much faster project than they would be able to if they did it manually.
Great. I'm going to jump around some of these questions. There's a 2-part question from John, and he's asking, and Tom, this is going to be more, I think, on your side. Is public cloud better than private when it comes to integrations? And then the second part of it is, are there any risks around security, data leaks, et cetera, between the public and private cloud?
So I assume public and private, I'm going to assume he means Oracle SaaS. And Oracle SaaS, you can have it in a private cloud. They actually do something called Cloud at Customer, where they'll actually put a machine in your environment and they have a direct pipe to Oracle and they kind of manage it. And you have to talk to Oracle more about how that works. But when I'm working with on-prem solutions in public and private clouds, I do have some challenges getting around firewalls, and it's a little bit easier to get around, ports and things like that when it's in the public cloud. But if you have a competent NOC person or a competent DBA, I don't think it's much of a difference. And security and data leaks, that is a much better question for Oracle and Amazon than it is for me as a lowly consultant. That is not something I typically deal with, so I'm going to punt on that one.
You're going to punt on that. No worries. Lavanya, there's another question from Sai, and it's kind of a 2-part question as well. You've been talking a lot about cloud tester and automation. He's asking, is automation mean utilizing RPA bots, or do you have a specific solution for automation? So maybe you can kind of clarify there.
Sure. Sai, no, this is not an RPA solution. We have an automated platform called Cloud Tester that we provide it as platform as a service. And it supports not just your SaaS applications, but on-prem systems, any custom applications, any PaaS solutions that you might have implemented, and any integrations that you have, right? With a single enterprise application, automation supports both functional regression testing, integrations testing, end-to-end testing, all different types of testing that you have. So bots, we've seen that from a bot standpoint, it's really good when it comes to automating your business processes that are more stable. But when it comes to actually testing on your non-prod environments, maintenance has been reported as a challenge. We actually have some customers who were using bots, but have transitioned to Cloud Tester because of the challenges with maintenance that they were having.
And the last question that's out there is from Jessica, and Lavanya, this is more around testing as well. She's asking what stage of implementation can we think to get basically testing and validation engaged in? So obviously the implementation it can be a long process. What stage do you normally get involved in?
Right. So we've done it, sometimes right before SIT starts so that we can actually get it automated in preparation for UAT. We've worked with customers where we actually started much early when the actual implementation configuration starts, right? When you start configuring the modules, so that we can actually start automating it in parallel, so that the automated test can actually be used even for SIT testing and UAT testing, right? So we recommend starting earlier is always better, so that you can actually speed up the process of testing even during SIT and UAT phase. But like I said, we've worked with customers where we've supported UAT, or we've supported both SIT and UAT as well.
Okay, great. Those are all the questions that we have. So if we do a quick time check, we only have a few minutes left. So if there's no further questions, I think we can go ahead and close it out. I want to say thank you to Tom for joining us today. Your insights have been fantastic. Again, wonderful speaking with you today. We have your contact information here on the slide. We'll be sending out the deck, and thank you to Lavanya as well for providing insights around testing and automation as well. Any closing thoughts, Lavanya or Tom?
Not for me.
Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, since there's no further questions, we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up. Thank you again all for attending, and a special thank you to Tom and Lavanya for your wonderful insights on this topic of moving to a ERP cloud solution. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.